Greetings. This is Steve Reed, Stephen Reed Ministries, and Stephen Reed Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Maximize Mission Success. Last time we talked about overcoming some of the obstacles, and we were talking primarily about obstacles from our past. What are the things that people have said to you? Are you ugly, fat, and stupid based on what other people say? Or are you handsome? Are you strong? Are you intelligent? Are you confident? Are you worthy? Are you giving? Are you loving? Are you forgiving? So, who are you? What are you basing your identity on? Well, I'm going to be sharing some insights into the world of forgiveness. And I want you to stay tuned and listen carefully because I'm going to be sharing some information that, frankly, most people don't recognize. We've all been hurt in our past. I was at a conference not too long ago, and I asked the question. I said, I don't need a show of hands, but how many of you have ever been rejected, abandoned, victimized, or abused? A couple of brave souls raised their hands. And I said, you don't need to raise your hand because I know the answer is 100% of us. Every single one of us have dealt with one or more of those things in our past. So the question is, do we sweep those things under the carpet or do we confront them head on? And one of the biggest challenges that people have is they tend to self-medicate. Now, what in the world do I mean by self-medicate? Well, it's different for everybody. Some people self-medicate with drugs and alcohol. They try and escape the pain. Some people go to the gym and they work out for 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Some people become workaholics. Some people start to journal and they think that's going to relieve the pain, only to turn the page and the pain comes back the next day. Some people go shopping. Ladies, I'm not picking on you, but maybe you have to have a new pair of shoes or a new lipstick color or a new scarf or a new blouse or something new. You just have to go shopping and you think that is retail therapy. For the guys, that's a new phone, it's a new iPad, it's a new computer, it's a new car. Maybe it's that bass boat that you've always wanted and you just dropped 30 or $40,000 or more on something like that to cover up the pain. For some people, it's bad relationships. Sometimes it's food. Now, down the road, I'll tell you what mine was when I've gone through some of those emotional trauma scenarios. But here's the crazy thing: none of those things work. Not a single one. Well, they may work temporarily. Maybe you have a sudden surge of endorphins and you're feeling great, but then tomorrow comes. The pain is right back there where it was. Well, over the next few weeks, I'm going to be sharing a few stories of people that I've worked with, and you could get the stories in my book, Restored by Grace. Now, this is a book. It's 10 stories of people that I've worked with over the years, and I share a little bit of their background and the essence of their story. Now, all the names are changed, and some of the circumstances are going to be changed as well for their protection. Okay. But I'm going to be sharing some stories so that you have some hope in your future. And the first story I want to share is a story about Joe and Cindy. Now, Joe and Cindy, when all of their stuff started, they were in their early 30s. They had 2 young daughters. Life was good. They lived in a small town in northern Louisiana, and life was good. Life revolved around 2 different things: their children, a family, and their church. They both grew up in the same church. They dated when they were in high school, got married shortly thereafter. Life was good. They started having children, and it could not have been better. In fact, Joe was one of the deacons at his church, and Cindy, well, if it had anything to do with women's ministry or food, Cindy was in the middle of it. You could always count on Cindy. Well, there was a new family that moved to town, and this new family thought they knew everything about churches, how they could run perfectly, which, as long as people are involved, it'll never run perfectly. And they started causing trouble. Well, the church was going through some remodeling in the sanctuary, and this couple knew the best color of paint that they should use on the walls in the church. And they also knew what the best color was for the carpeting. And they were just simply causing trouble. Well, the last trouble that Joe and Cindy were involved with was that having to do with grape juice. You got it right. Grape juice. Do we use white grape juice or do we use red grape juice? Remember, the grape juice is used to signify the blood of Christ. His blood wasn't white, it was red, just like everybody else. Well, they have a church-wide meeting to make the decision on what color or what kind of grape juice they're going to use. And I don't remember who it was that said red and who said white. Doesn't matter. There was conflict. And Joe and Cindy, well, the meeting was over. They thought everything was resolved. They're going to move forward. So they went home. Well, the next evening, they got a phone call from the head deacon. And he says, "Hey, are you guys going to be around for a few minutes?" "Well, yeah. You mind if I stop by?" "No, come on over." "Cindy, remember, food. She's a great hostess. She always has something in the kitchen that she can either whip up quickly, pull out of the freezer, refrigerator, whatever. She's always got something." Well, this friend of theirs came over, and Cindy's all ready to start making something. And he says, "No, I'm not going to be here that long." "Well, what's going on? Come on in. Sit down." And he says, "No, I just need to say this and get it over with." "You sound like somebody died." Well, they kind of did. There was a meeting after the meeting last night. "Okay. But we didn't know anything about it." "You didn't because it was about you." And this other couple that was causing all the trouble convinced enough people to have Joe and Cindy removed from the church. They were kicked out of the church. There were stalwarts in the church. They were two of the people that held things together. Joe was furious. Cindy was devastated. And the challenge came in. Joe made every phone call he could possibly make to try and rectify this situation. Cindy, on the other hand, started building walls. And the walls were so thick and so tall that absolutely no one could penetrate those walls, including her husband, Joe. Over the years, if Cindy would be walking through the downtown area, if she's on one side of the street and one of her former friends was on that same side, they would cross the street so they didn't have to talk to Cindy. She was crushed. Fast forward about 25 years. Their one daughter came through a program that I was working with, and it was a group type of a program. It was a weekend, or actually 3 weekend event. And her daughter got so much out of the program that she started to tell her parents about it and insisted that they also go through the program. Well, Joe and Cindy agreed. The time came that Joe and Cindy are at the event, and I'm going to be working with Cindy and some other folks at the same time, and somebody else is working with Joe. On Friday night, we asked the question of the group: "Tell us about a time that you felt like you were a victim." Cindy started to pour her heart out. The pain was still so intense, even after 25 years. On Saturday morning, we asked the question, tell us about a time that you felt rejected. Cindy started to share more details on what was going on. Fast forward to Saturday afternoon. We asked Cindy this simple question: are you ready to start getting rid of the pain once and for all? She very quickly agreed. And Cindy recognized that she had to forgive some people. Now, in another episode, I'm going to be talking about the forgiveness that we're talking about. I'm not just saying, hey, I forgive you. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a very methodical process that you go through. But Cindy realized that she had to forgive that other couple that caused all the trouble. She had to forgive the other deacons. She had to forgive the pastor and the church as a whole. She even had to forgive her husband, Joe, because she thought that he could have fixed things since he was a deacon. The number one person she had to forgive was God. Now, Cindy knew that God is perfect. God never makes a mistake. But in her mind, God could have changed everything to her benefit. He probably could have. But remember, we have free will and we make choices. We make decisions on our own. Cindy started to get the relief that she so deserved for 25 years. At the end of the second weekend, Cindy had become a new person or a restored person. And as a result, Joe tracked me down on that Sunday night, gave me a big bear hug, and he said, thank you for giving my wife back to me. You know, people ask me all the time, Steve, why do you do the coaching you do? That's why I do the coaching I do. Because I love it when relationships are restored. I love it when people are healed and they can get rid of the emotional pain, the emotional trauma that they've held on to for days, weeks, months. And in Joe and Cindy's case, for years. You see, Cindy was broken. She was a broken vessel. And through God's grace, she was restored so that she could be usable for God's glory once again. Where are you today? Are you holding on to some baggage from your past? Are you holding on to some pain, some things that maybe you don't want to hold on to? I'm going to share my screen with you for just a brief moment. And Cindy and Joe's story came out of my book, Restored by Grace. Again, that's 10 stories of people that I've worked with over the years and how they got through some of the junk that they were dealing with. I want to share another story though in the few minutes that we have remaining. So take a look at this. And I hope you don't mind. I'm going to be sharing the story. I'll keep the slide up for a few minutes so that if you want, you can scan the QR code and you can look at some information about Restored by Grace. I'll talk more about the book on the right-hand side. Who Are You Really? If you're interested in both of the books, I've got a bundle price for you on both of them. That includes the shipping cost as well. But when you look at the stories, you realize that people have been traumatized in all different ways. Real quickly, a story about a young girl named Candy. Now, that's what I called her. You see, Candy was objectified. When she was about 13 years old, her stepbrother's best friend came for a visit one afternoon. Nobody else in the family was around. And this 16-year-old guy, 16, 17 years old, He started a pattern of molesting Candy, and then he started a pattern of raping Candy. And then he got her hooked on drugs and alcohol. And then he brought some friends over and started to gang rape her. And then one day, he convinced Candy to go for a drive. And Bubba became a sex trafficker. And he sold Candy into a life of prostitution where she stayed for the next 10 years. Candy, should I say, was being objectified. She was arrested numerous times, spent time in jail. And it wasn't until she was rescued and started living in a halfway house, got off of the drugs and the alcohol, and started to clean up her life that she realized that she had to make some major, major changes. One of the things that I do when I'm starting to work with clients, especially if they've been dealing with emotional trauma issues, is I ask them a simple question: who are you? In Candy's case, her response was, I'm a prostitute. I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic. No, that describes a lifestyle and what you used to do. That's not who you are. Over the next couple of weekends, we worked intensely together. We uncovered a lot of the baggage, the victimhood, the rejection, the abandonment, the abuse that she dealt with day after day after day. Candy had no clue who she was. During the second weekend, we spent some time looking at who she truly was. Candy had a lot of people she had to forgive, and that was starting to release all of the pain that she had been holding on to for the previous 10 years. She's finally getting to the point where she can start to see a little bit of hope, that ray of light that said there's more for you. And I remember on that Friday afternoon of the second weekend we were working together, Candy started to discover who she truly was. She took some time and she asked God, who am I? And what God told her was life changing. And every single person that would go through the program, they had to write a contract or an I am statement. And Candy's was real simple and to the point. I am God's beautiful princess. Boy, did we rejoice and celebrate that day. Candy had been abused and objectified, but Candy was a broken vessel, but she was restored by God's grace and mercy. Now, maybe you don't relate to Candy's story or previously Ron and Cindy's story. Maybe there's some other areas that you're struggling with, but I will assure you, you do not need to stay in that pain anymore. Two things. Number one, scan the QR codes and strongly consider purchasing these books. When you buy both of them together, you get a little bit of a discount. But also, consider scheduling an appointment with me. Just scan the QR code that takes you to my calendar. As I said previously, I'll give you a 30-minute complimentary session. Let's see if we can work together to help you deal with some of the garbage that you may be holding on to, maybe for the past 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years or more. You don't need to stay there any longer. You see, we can all be restored by God's grace. You deserve it. What are you waiting for? Let's get rid of the junk and help you to live a more victorious life. Well, my name is Steve Reed. I'm with Stephen Reed Ministries and Stephen Reed Coaching. This is Maximize Mission Success. My mission, my purpose is to bring light and hope so that you can live a more victorious life. You don't need to stay stuck. Reach out. Let's help you get the healing, the emotional healing that you so deserve. I look forward to visiting with you soon. God bless you. Have a blessed day. Goodbye for now.